something that we have to be mindful of as the people is who is influencing the culture and what ideas are being influenced and pushed to people on the mass level. Lived experience can put you on par or above people who have the academic credentials. One of my real good friends, she asked me in April of 2022, she said, where do you go to feel safe as a black man? And I told her in my blackness. And she didn't quite understand what I meant. Everybody goes through childhood trauma and go through different situations and things that they don't even realize affect them. So I was running from that, just kind of trying to numb myself. I think like when you think about kind of the symptoms of what you go through, like when you smoke, it's almost a direct reflection of being depressed. People, when they reach a certain extent and their life don't have meaning, it takes on the form in America of drug use. After we started becoming conscious and aware, then drugs started getting pumped into our communities. And so drug use, I'm not here to stigmatize or demonize nobody who do drugs. Just ask yourself where the drugs come from and why are they prevalent in our communities? I'm not running from nothing. And so when I first originally stopped smoking, I'm like, okay, I kept that in mind. Like, what am I running from? And so one thing that I've noticed is that I got more clarity on my purpose. I've definitely strengthened my relationship with God.
What's good? Welcome to another edition of the CYR Podcast. My name is Payton Hogan. This podcast is all about mental health, business, entrepreneurship, and capturing people's stories in the hopes that it inspires somebody out there to do more with their life, do better with their life, get healed in your life, find a partner that you need, leave the partner that you with that ain't really serving you, whatever it is, elevate your game, and so much more. Today, on the pod, we got my boy, Jonny Knogood.
Peace.
Johnny's a pillar in the community, man, really doing work from the ground up, really touching men's mental. He has a men's group that he runs. He's been doing that. He was telling me off camera, going into year three,
yes, sir.
Doing big things. And so I'm gonna give the mic over to Jonny. Go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself. Let the people know what you do, who you are, and what you're about.
Man, peace. Jonny Knogood. Birth name is Devontae Abram. I reside in the intersections of art, education, and urban ag. So I garden. I teach a creative writing class, and I do poetry and spoken word, man. So definitely excited to be on the podcast. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for the work that you're doing and being a representative in a field that we don't see a lot of people that look like us. So I'm excited to dive into the conversation. And as we get into it, people will learn a little bit more about me.
Most definitely. You already, right out the gate, man, you talking about some things that I think are really intertwined with just like our culture, art, agriculture.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think it's talked about enough. What originally got you into like wanting to pursue some of those things?
Man, so back in the days, man, you could just turn your own boombox, your own radio station into a recorder. So shout out to my cousin, his name is Sherman Wells, and my older brother Drewski. They was doing music, and I could still hear one of the songs that they recorded now, still know the words to it, and I always looked up to them. Them, my cousin Raynell, my cousin Tinka, they was all doing music, and they had created a group called NRP, Nigga Rig Productions. And so that ended up evolving into Untamed. At 7 years old, I wrote my first rap.
Hey.
I remember finding out that we had to die. And my mom had invited my grandpa over to come speak to me. And I was so distraught, bro. I'm like, hold up, like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just started reading the Bible, so I almost felt like, Jesus, Lord, you can't take this cup from me. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you sure this the only way? So my grandpa came over and he explained to me, like that we had to die. And so the first song I ever wrote, I was like, at the time, that song, Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even on Saturday. Yeah. So my first rap I ever wrote at 7, I said, Monday through Sunday, one day I'm going to have to die, but don't cry. Keep your head up and keep my memory alive. So it's crazy. But at 7 years old, when I found out that we had to die, I said that I'm going to make my death mean something. So I don't never want my death to be in vain. I always try to live purposefully and on purpose.
Facts.
Yes,
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep. I think that speaks to just a part of our culture, bro. Just a part of our culture and how so deep, like art, music, all of that is intertwined with us. I think mainstream has tried to strip that piece and just make it like it's almost like you could eat Spam or you could eat some homegrown chicken.
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I'm saying? The homegrown chicken got nutrients, and what you just talked about right there is the nutrient of your creativity, man. And
Yes, sir.
a lot of what is pushed out today on a certain level be like that Spam that really ain't coming from a place of like genuineness.
Yes, sir.
What is your thoughts on that? Just like when we see creativity being perverted almost.
Yeah, so I think that art is always a reflection of the people and of the times. And if you look historically, there has been countries that know how submissive a culture is based off of the art that they create. And so, like, my mom was older, so I grew up around, like I said, family members who was in music. My mom was a gangster, you know what I'm saying? She was older, but she was a gangster. So I grew up around artists like Tupac. I grew up around artists like Top Authority. So like the stuff that they was talking about, it might have not, it's like Tupac got more conscious, but there was always an element of realness in the music and authenticity in the music. So I always kind of loved that. I always kind of gravitated towards that. And that's always been something that's big with me. I think that, you know, something that we have to be mindful of as the people is who is influencing the culture and what ideas are being influenced and pushed to people on the mass level. And so, like I said, if you look and study historically different populations, what the music is talking about is often a reflection of the times. And, you know, when, you know, I know you around my age, when we was coming up, the music at the time in the 90s was about getting money. It was about how many drugs you could sell. And, you know, it's like during the 2010s that started making a shift to how many drugs you can use. So we went from a society that was pushing, you know, or the message that was being pushed was getting to the money and how many drugs you could sell to being a society that reflects how many drugs you can use. And I think that it's a direct indicator of where is the people's mentality at. I just almost every year for like the last 4 years, I read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the things that he talked about in that society was about how people, when they reach a certain extent in their life don't have meaning, it takes on the form in America of drug use. And how like direct, even like there was stories of like prisoners who they was given cigarettes as rations. And they could always tell which prisoners was on the verge of giving up based on if they smoked their cigarettes or not. And so I think that just looking at the society, looking at how prevalent drug use is amongst the society, and, you know, me being a former smoker, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm coming up on a year clean in May. You know what I'm saying? So I stopped, thank you, bro. I stopped smoking and just getting more clear on life, man. It's crazy. I never thought I would. But just kind of seeing how we numb ourselves with drug use and that being a direct reflection on the hopelessness of society is something that I picked up on. So it's something I pay attention to in the music.
Most definitely. Two things. Number one, you plugged in Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, sir.
That book is not even that, like, in comparison to most books, it's not that long.
No, not at all.
So if you out here watching and you like, man, what's a book I should read? I think that's a good book because, one, it's not going to be super like, dang, I need to know all these big words and all this stuff. Man, you literally are learning about this dude as he's going through the concentration camps over in Nazi Germany, which is fire, and you getting like a recap of what he went through and how he made it through it, and just his interpretation of his form of psychology through it all. Number one, and then number two, man. Can you speak a little bit more on just like drug use and what you've noticed for yourself as you've sobered up? What are some of the things that you've gained clarity on through that? Because I think in today's culture, like you said, music especially promotes it. It's like drug use is the thing. It's it's what makes you cool. And to take it even an extent further, like it's graduated from not only just blowing tree or smoking weed, but now it's like, I'm cool if I'm popping pills. Like, yes, if I'm using heroin, I'm cool. If I'm on that, it's what's up. If I'm on coke, like you can't go to a club, and I ain't been to a club in a minute, but I know even from a couple years back, you can't go to a club and not see people in and out the bathroom wiping their nose and shit. Like, yes, sir. And so for you, I know you wasn't doing all that, but I just needed to get that out there. For you, what kind of clarity have you noticed for yourself since you've like eliminated that from your life?
Man, Honestly, the first 2 weeks was rough, not necessarily because of like wanting to smoke. It was rough because of the dreams I was having that night. So one thing that I think that a lot of people don't think about is like, do you remember your dreams? Because we dream every single night. The brain goes through a process in REM sleep. And I wasn't remembering my dreams for close to 3 years.
Oh, dang.
So the first 2 weeks after I stopped smoking, bro, I'm literally catching myself, fighting myself in my sleep. Like I'm sleep talking, and I know I'm sleep talking after a while because I'm responding. I'm physically swinging in the air. So I went through a process for about 2 weeks of literally battling my demons while in my sleep. So definitely, I got a real good friend of mine, a brother named Eric Ajicki. And bro,
Shout out Eric.
Shout out to Eric, man, in CYR Podcast.
Yeah.
But bro, don't drink, never smoked, none of that stuff. And one thing he would say at the men's group, and I know we'll get there later, was that I'm not running from nothing. And so when I first originally stopped smoking, I'm like, okay, I kept that in mind. Like, what am I running from? And so one thing that I've noticed is that I got more clarity on my purpose. I've definitely strengthened my relationship with God, coming to understand who Jesus was for myself, the teachings, getting into it, because I feel like, rightfully so, that there's a lot of misconceptions around Christianity, around the teachings of Jesus and what he stood for. So it definitely helped me get more clarity in my walk, saving a couple more dollars, you know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about like smoking before I go somewhere. Just sometimes you get antsy as you waiting, you want to get home, you want to smoke, like feeling like I needed to do it before everything. And I see you got the sticks over there. Boy, I swear to God, bro, that 2K will have me, especially playing the rec. You know what I'm saying? Playing the rec, man, have me stressed, bro, before every game, bro. So I just noticed that, I'm genuinely enjoying who I am, and I haven't changed that much. So it let me know that even though I was smoking, even though I was addicted to it, it didn't change that much of my personality for sure. But I do think that it's something that I've noticed in the culture. Like you said, you could start with the 70s and the heroin usage, and kind of like after we started becoming conscious and aware, then drugs started getting pumped into our communities. And so drug use, I'm not here to stigmatize or demonize nobody who do drugs. Just ask yourself, where the drugs come from and why are they prevalent in our communities? And so that's a question for people to process.
110%. Along the same lines, man, because I know for myself, when I was smoking weed and doing it heavy, like there were a lot of people who were around me that I thought were like close, genuine friends. When I stopped, my circle it turned to a period. It wasn't a circle. It wasn't a circle.
Dot.
Yeah. Is that something that you noticed for yourself as well too?
So I would say that I mostly, being kind of public facing, a lot of people didn't know that I smoked, and then some of the roles that I was in previously, so people didn't know I smoked. It ain't like I hid it. I just had got to the point a couple years ago where I didn't even like smelling like weed. So if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna do it in the healthiest form. I had a bong, I had my hemp wick, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm in and out with it, you know what I'm saying? I don't like smelling like weed or nothing like that. So when you're younger, that's something that you bond and build a lot of friendships with. But as I got older, a lot of my friends are professional. A lot of my homies got master's degrees, doing their doctoral programs, they CEOs, EDs and stuff like that. So just the people who I've been around in the past, half a decade to a decade, that's not even a part of their lifestyle. So most of my friendships, I can say, have genuinely been built off of commonality. And I've always said that I appreciate my real good friends like Shamari, Eric, my brother Tyler Payne, because they support my goals and not my habits. And so I haven't lost a lot of friends. I already wasn't super social with smoking.
Yeah.
I just like to do my little thing and then let my mind go. So, but just rediscovering who I am, rediscovering the capacity to live happily without it, has been something that's been new for me for sure.
I hear that. That's dope. I want to run it back to something that you said just a couple seconds earlier. You mentioned Eric. He said, "I'm not running from anything."
Yes, sir.
When you first started using, do you think or do you believe there was something that you were running from?
Yeah.
And if so, what?
So, yeah, I definitely think that and it's kind of like a slippery slope because Dr. Miles Monroe said that a bird, you should not feel proud of doing something that you're supposed to do. A bird doesn't get accolades for flying. A fish doesn't get accolades for swimming. And so us being put here with a purpose and a reason, there's certain things that we're supposed to do. And I subconsciously, unconsciously, or maybe even consciously was running away from what I feel like is a divine calling on my life. So I definitely was running away from different things. Everybody goes through childhood trauma and go through different situations and things that they don't even realize affect them. So I was running from that, just kind of trying to numb myself. I think like when you think about kind of the symptoms of what you go through, like when you smoke, it's almost a direct reflection of being depressed or being in depression. And so like, like I said, I'm a connoisseur. So I started realizing, okay, maybe I don't need no indicas. Maybe I need sativas because if I'm feeling down and I smoke this, then I respond this type of way. Or if I smoke this and I'm feeling down, maybe it won't be as bad. So I won't go to that negative space. But yeah, there was definitely things that I was running from and things that I'm still dealing with now currently, So I always kind of felt like I could do more. And it's kind of been an interesting balance because it reminds me of a quote from J. Cole. He said, even with my ego low, achieved the unachievable. Imagine what I would have did if my self-esteem was halfway decent, yo. And it's like all of the things that I've done, I've still dealt with a sense of imposter syndrome and feeling like I'm not worthy. But I came across a quote that said that God don't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so like all of this stuff that I'm doing, and people be like, oh man, bro, I'm so proud of you. I still feel like I can do more because I honestly know I still have more to give.
Yeah. I hear that, bro. That's a bar.
Yes, sir.
That's a bar. When we look at mental health and we look at, I think two that really hit home in our community is alcohol use and then weed use. When we look at trying to really heal ourselves and really start to do some of the inner work, how does alcohol use and weed use like put a barrier in between actually like working through and healing?
So for me, I can say that, alcoholism kind of ran on my daddy's side of the family. And even on my mother's side with her mother, my grandma that passed away, Grandma Rachel, she used to get drunk and turn up, you know what I'm saying? So I come from some warrior women. Shout out to the women in my family. So alcoholism, just kind of growing up, one of those things that I was talking about kind of was like seeing how alcohol affected my older brother. And like I've always told myself, when you're younger, I ain't gonna never do this and I ain't gonna never do that. Well, I told myself I was never going to smoke weed. As soon as I smoked for the first time at 15, I said, okay, yeah. When I turned 18, I'm on it. You know what I'm saying? So I smoked that one time. I still remember, we used to get the packs of gum with the sleeves. So I rolled up in the sleeve, the little white sleeve, bro, almost killed myself. But I'm like, whoa, what's this? So when I graduated, turned 18, 17, I graduated at 17. When I graduated, I actually started smoking. I enjoyed it. But I never really picked up the alcohol. I've never been drunk. Like I've drank before, but I've never been inebriated. I never got drunk. And it was kind of seeing like some of the different issues that my older brother would get himself into. My dad, he dealt with alcoholism. So it was something that I always told myself like, yeah, I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to go that path. And especially for a lot of us have indigenous blood in us. You talk to some of your older relatives and they'll let you know, hey, we indigenous, we native, we Choctaw,
Gullah Geechee,
we Gullah Geechee, we Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? Like we coming from these different groups. So I definitely know that there's something to be mindful of with that. And I think that alcohol abuse is kind of a way for a lot of people to not have to deal with the present circumstances. The same way with the trees, man. You hit the trees and you up there. You get what I'm saying? You're not really dealing with, or it helps you kind of cope and be content with your situation. And there's pros and cons to being content. Like, if you want too much, then you leaning towards greed. But if you don't want enough for yourself, then it kind of puts you in an interesting space. And what you think that you're capable of having is a direct reflection of what you think about yourself. So, you know, like the things that we think that we deserve will actually attract them into our life by the amount of conviction we put on those thoughts. So I think it's important to understand what it is that you want for yourself. Where are you going? What do you think that you're capable of? And like I said, I dealt with imposter syndrome. So I'm doing things that I never would have thought I'd be able to do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just appreciative of growth.
Most definitely. I want to hit back on something that you were just mentioning, being indigenous, man. I think that's a topic that's not talked about enough.
Yes, sir.
And we ain't gonna speak too much on who's silencing that topic or what's silencing that topic. But I think we should shed some light on what that even means, because there might be some people out there that don't even understand what being indigenous, looking like you and me, actually means. Can you talk a little bit more on that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think it's important to do your research and go out and study. You know, like as indigenous people, as black people, there was a history of our people being in this country before slavery. So I think that a lot of people have to go and research some things. There's a society called Cahokia. A lot of people have never heard of Cahokia, but it was one of the biggest civilizations that existed over here. And you start going over towards the Mississippi and, you know, Alabama, and looking at all of those different people. There was two groups of indigenous people that was here. You know, the people who have been historically over in Mexico, and then the people, the what they called the Indians of North America. And you look at a lot of the pictures of the early indigenous tribes of South Carolina, some of the indigenous tribes of California. These were darker skinned people. So I think it's important to understand that there has been a history of people being over here before Columbus, or Cristobal Colon, as he really was named. But you look at Abu Bakari II, who came over here, I believe, in 1332. And there's evidences of there being a trade back and forth between, you know, the Africa and, you know, what was America, or what they call Turtle Island. So I think it's important to do that. It's important to sit with your older relatives. I had a relative who just passed away. We had the same birthday. And she just passed away at 97. My aunt Shelly. And you know, my uncle ED would always, he's still alive, but he would talk about how, you know, we are Choctaw, and about how they came up from the reservation, and how we was born in Oklahoma, and I think it's Isabel or Idabel, Oklahoma. And so, like, you start going and speaking to some of your older relatives, and they still have the history. They still remember what it looked like. And it's a joke, man. You know, even we say it unconsciously without thinking about the amount of weight on it. But a lot of us are joking, be like, every black person talking about they got Indian in their family. You know what I'm saying?
It's real.
Like,
but it's real.
So, I mean, like, you know, we got to look into that, understanding that there was people who looked like us who was over here before the slave trade. And that whole situation got very muddy because there was groups who was all intermingling. I mean, like, you look at what happened in Florida with the Seminoles. To be semi is to be half something. And so, like, there's groups of indigenous people and groups of people who were enslaved that all intermingled down in Florida. And that's where you get a group like the Seminoles from. And so I think it's just important to always be open to learning, always being open to studying, and then just admitting that you don't know everything, and then go look into it. But definitely, if you never heard of Cahokia, look into Cahokia. They still got some like a museum down in near St. Louis. It was the Great Mound Cities. Those mounds were modern day pyramids. So I think that it's just important to know that as people who originated from the motherland, we have been all around the world, and we are all around the world. So just be open to, you know, discovering that who you think you are might not be who you think you are.
Man, that's good. That's good. Man, there's so many ways I want to go with this and ask questions. One thing I would say is, man, we don't even want to get started on the Seminoles. Mm-hmm. We don't even want to talk about the Seminole War. Mm-hmm. They don't even want to talk about the Seminole War, because if you knew about the Seminole War and what actually happened with that, how we stood our ground and slaughtered. That's why it ain't in the books. Yeah. That's why they ain't speaking about it.
Yeah, never hear about John Horse.
Come on.
Never
hear about it.
But they'll tell you about the Trail of Tears.
And they'll tell you that you came over on a boat, chained down, getting shit on by you and all your hump. Like, they'll tell you that, but they won't tell you this part. That's good. Ivan Van Sertima, a book that came before Columbus. That's a real good book. Peep that if you want to know more. And also Destruction of the Black Civilization by Chancellor D. Williams. Another fire book. Fire book. Gems, bro. But to kind of piggyback off of this conversation, man, what implications do you believe, like, not knowing our history has had on us mentally?
Man, so it makes you think less of yourself. So I want to say, let me see real quick.
Go ahead.
Let me see. Because I don't want to misquote it. Dostoevsky said that a man is a creature who can get used to almost anything. And so based on what position or what kind of things that you think about yourself, you can get used to that. So if your only history that you think about yourself is that you've been enslaved, you look at yourself with a kind of stigma towards your people, and it make you kind of ashamed of who you are. So I remember we did a podcast before. We was on a mental health episode speaking with Miss Cheryl Weston.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mentioned there's a sister called The Unapologetic Black Guide to Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker. And she talked about the need for us to associate and assimilate back to our African culture. So I think, like, understanding history, if you realize that we were not the only group of people to be enslaved, even in this country, which started as a penal colony, but they enslaved Irish people. They tried to enslave native indigenous people. You can't enslave somebody. I can't come to your home and then enslave you in your home and you not know about all the little exits and stuff like that. So it didn't work. Even the word slave originated from Slavic, which was the Russian people. But we are the only group of people who have went through chattel slavery. So there's the transatlantic slave trade, and then there's the sub-Saharan slave trade, you know, and that's where a lot of people ended up, you know, in the Arab countries and on the Arab Peninsula and stuff like that. But I think that for a lot of people, they don't understand the greatness of who they are and where they come from. They don't know about the Kush people. You mentioned they don't know, like, just how great we are as a people. So I think that with us not knowing kind of our history, only what's been told to us, it make us look at our people with shame. We don't hear about all of the different slave revolts. We don't hear about how after slavery, those little 12 years that they gave us a reconstruction, cities, how much stuff we did, how much stuff we put together. I mean, like, you know, you talking about, we had 46 schools that was created right after slavery. So you don't just get into a position and then just start building. There's a part of our story and narrative that's missing. And I think it kind of helps keep us in a submissive mindset. Another part of that, and I thought that this was pretty interesting, you know, at the height of the Freedmen's Bureau, not only did we create 46 schools, but we have 52 asylums. So mental health has always been an issue that goes back to that time, and there's a stigma around it. And I think that for a lot of us, it makes us avoid the conversation of mental health. When you look at something and look at it in 1851, there was a term coined called drapetomania, in which they said that Black people, because of their savageness, had a mental illness for wanting to be free, and said we had an innate inheritance towards laziness because we didn't want nothing to do. So, like, when you look at, like, some of the history behind mental health and kind of how the stigmatization happened, it's no wonder why we have a problem that's prevalent in America today with Black people and not feeling comfortable or not wanting to be open about some of the battles that we're going through. The last thing that you ever wanted to do was seem like you wasn't able of doing the job. So I think just as Black people, as we learn more about our history, you learn about the Hannibals, you learn about some of the stuff that we did, how you know, what's it called, the African Excharte, some of the history of how Scipio Africanus became Africanus. Africa ain't named after Scipio Africanus. He got the name Africanus because he conquered over there. So like, as you just start learning more about your history of people, the things that they've done in this world, it gives you a sense of pride. And it's not about like being like, oh, we are better or we're supreme. There's a chosen group of people out here. And I think the more that you just understand that we come from some very dynamic people who have done amazing things. And I feel like there has been so many genotypes of people, phenotypes of people that have been wiped out due to history. I feel like if other groups had been subjected to what we went through, they wouldn't exist no more. So there's nothing for us to feel ashamed about with being black in the history. It's just about understanding that they don't tell the full story. And last thing I'll say on that is Frederick Douglass said something that was so profound to me. He said that knowledge unfits a child to be a slave. So we got the technology in front of us. We have the tools in front of us. We in the age of information. This is our gold rush. Learn more about your history, who you come from, and some of the things that our people have done on this country and in the world.
That's big. That's powerful. I think we're in a point in time in history, like you just said, that is very pivotal. Like, we have so much information at the tips of our hands. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also a blessing and a curse, because on a certain note, we could literally find out anything. Mm-hmm. But then on the flip side of that, anything could be pushed and fed. How do you know, or how are you able to decipher and filter through what is bullshit and what ain't?
Man, beautiful question. So I mentioned that, I've been strengthening my walk with God and learning more about my spiritual nature and spiritual aspect. And one of the fruits of the spirit is discernment. And so I do have a gift of discernment. I do utilize that. So I kind of can pick up and deceive what's real and what's not. But I would say from a scientific approach, when scientists set out to go across information, they are not looking to prove their hypothesis. They're actually looking to disprove their hypothesis. So I would say keep in mind that, there is different biases that we can come across as our own self and own people that we deal with unconsciously. There's a such thing as a confirmation bias. And so like if you are seeking and searching certain information and you find anything that kind of goes along with that, you can run with that and it not be true. So I would say, not only do I take a spiritual approach, I take a scientific approach. A lot of the stuff that I'm looking for, I'm not looking to prove myself right. I'm actually looking to disprove myself and can't find evidence to the contrary. So I would say just be mindful. Try to use what is a good source. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy now, but definitely if you look on Google got like Google Scholars, go to different academic journals and stuff like that. Just be mindful of what is the history of some of that stuff. I talked about Drapetomania. That's pseudoscientific. So you got to be mindful that just because it's academic don't necessarily make it right. Yeah. Just because it's moral don't make it legal. Just because it's legal don't make it moral. So just, do your due diligence. Try to check for sources as much as possible. But read, man. And I mean, just keep in mind, why would somebody choose to put this in the book or choose not to put it into a book? And that might be something that could help you answer some of your questions. But definitely use discernment with everything. Like I said, one of the gifts of the spirit is discernment. I took a little bootleg test. I don't know how real it is, but it said that was my number one gift. But I could say that I believe that too. Facts.
How you feel about getting information off of like TikTok, Instagram, the Reels?
So it's like a slippery slope because it is the age of information and information is abundant. Lived experience can put you on par or above people who have the academic credentials. So there is people on TikTok who can teach you some things that you won't find in a university because they actually lived it. They have lived experience. Just perfect example with like the mental health group that we're doing. And I know we'll get there. There's professionals who believe that this couldn't be done because they can't do it approaching it from an academic lens, as opposed to viewing it from like a humanistic standpoint and just dealing with people. Yeah. And so I would say that, TikTok Instagram. These are places and stuff like that where information can be readily available. So just be mindful that it might not be real information. In the past, censorship looked like withholding information. In the age of information, censorship looks like disseminating disinformation. So just be mindful that we are in the age of information. Data is one of the biggest things out there. So if you want to control a people or a group of people, you can feed them misinformation and see how far it goes. I just seen a story this morning on Facebook. They were sharing about two look like Mexican people talking about they killed 3 cops here in the last week. That ain't happened, but you know how many people are sharing that story? Be mindful, people are monetizing that. And based off the engagement, the emotions that it elicit, there's certain things that make certain stuff more viral or not. So there's a good brother here named Leo Lewis. He sent me a book that was a part of Nipsey Hussle's reading list, and it's called Contagion. I believe it's Contagion, and it talked about how to make stuff go viral. And there's different emotions that actually inflate people versus deflating people. Anger is emotion that get people going. Anger inflates people, it moves them, whereas sadness is something that kind of takes the wind out of people's sail. So just be mindful that emotional manipulation is real, and the way that these algorithms work, if it gets a conception of who you are, the algorithm will push certain information into you that could feed into your own biases that you're not even conscious of having.
Man. That's why social media is one of the greatest tools ever, but it's also one of the biggest curses that could be in your life for exactly what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Exactly what you're saying. And it also, like, when we look at it from a mental health perspective, bro, how many mental health illnesses, how many mental health illnesses, there we go, come from people who are just stuck on social media, getting their emotions pulled in one way or the other, whether it's the emotion of sadness or depression, because they seeing people that got things that they don't got. They got the bodies that they don't got. They got the money that they don't got. They see all this bad stuff that's constantly happening, which it is some bad stuff that's happening in the world. But once the algorithm get a hold of you looking at one thing, it's going to feed you 10 more things. And now you in this space, or now that it got you pulled politically, or it got you pulled in another direction with something that's angering you, now it's just feeding you that, and now you're stuck in this state of just perpetual like stress and tension on your body, and what that does over time. Can you speak to just like that impact or the implications that this will have on our younger generations? Because from here, I feel like we grew up in a generation where it's in between social media and not. Like,
yep.
I think for the most part, many of us know how to be without social media. Like, we could tap out, go hop on a bike, drop it off at the corner, and you know where everybody at. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? But we also still, to a certain extent, engage in social media activities. It might not be to the fullest extent that everybody else is using it today, but this younger generation, they whole life, everything that they know is social media, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network. Like, it's this virtual space where anything could be fed to them. And my relationship is with my girlfriend that live over in Europe that I get on Call of Duty with every night, and we talking about we love each other, but I never actually seen you, and I don't know anything about you past your KD is real high. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, like, what implication do you believe that has on like our younger generations?
Man, it's a very big implication, and it's neuroses. But I think that definitely when you start talking about social media in a way that it can impact mental health, one of my friends, he actually made a song in which he was talking about it. And he was talking about how he met a girl, he had good intentions, he sent her a friend request. When he sent it to her, she had 0 friends mutual. But he checked his request, it's still pending, but now they got 4 mutual friends. You know what I'm saying? And I cracked up when he played the song because it's coming from a very honest place. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, bro, hold up. I seen this chick I went to high school with. My friend request pending. Let me cancel that. You know what I'm saying? But he talked about, I sent you a request, but it seemed like you paid that no mind. And understanding how the algorithm works, I know that personally on my Instagram stories, if I put 3 laughing faces in a row, the amount of people who view my story is almost triple than if I use the word black in my story. So I think that we have to be mindful that the algorithm picks and chooses who engages with what, and it's based off of the information that they have picked up about people. Everything is monitored. How long you sit on the screen and look at it, what you engage with. So I know a lot of people like, oh man, I sent them over a page to like. No, I don't like nothing because I don't
I ain't trying to get fed.
I'm not trying to get fed this in my algorithm. I don't want Google knowing more about me than my best friend. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that it's important to realize that these are artificial environments that are curated based off of. So like I just set up a computer last night. Oh, can we check your stats and monitor this to customize ads and stuff like that to you? No, I don't want y'all doing none of that stuff. So I think it used to be more difficult to tailor a person's specific experience. Like I remember the first time like I went up to Minnesota and I realized like they play hockey on like the hockey games that come on ABC and stuff like that, prime time. I'm not used to that. I used to think that on cable, every region was seeing the same stuff. And that's not how it worked. It's a curated content. And on social media, it's that times 1,000.
Man.
So, you know, I got 3 different social media accounts for Instagram alone. I got my personal page, Jonny Knogood. I got the Yes Black Men Read page. And then I got the Black Folks Who Garden page. Each one of my feeds is completely different. And so based off of what people engage with depends on if the algorithm thinks that this is something that they would want to see. And sometimes they'll purposely put stuff that you don't want to see in front of you to make you mad. And there was, I think there was some lawsuits that came out about that, how that type of stuff was interfering with the election and how, you know, like, so there was a bunch of states that ended up suing social media. That's why, you know, Instagram, Facebook and stuff like that, Meta was in the news, you know, TikTok, they trying to ban it. There's some genuine concerns with it. But I think that it's important to remember that it is social media. And it's not real. But what is real? You know, that's a question for a lot of people to ask themselves, but it's not real. And so be mindful of that. You know, if I put up I feel bad for the sisters who be putting up a post about like, being sexually frustrated and they get no engagement when that's the stuff that they usually push to get a bunch of engagement. How do that make you feel? You know what I'm saying? I think about, you know, the brothers who flashing and showing money and you getting 2 likes on your little post, you know, as opposed to 2,000. How does that make you feel? Your sense of self-worth, you know? So I think that is definitely important to just keep in mind that social media and the algorithm is a curated thing for each individual person.
Man, I got 3 YouTube accounts, man. I got one YouTube account where I be watching. Man, I kind of be on it sometimes. I be watching the streamers play their games.
Yes, sir.
I be watching when my cousin got a channel too, so I tune into his stuff, and that's what that whole page is. Then I got another one where I read my books. I got my books on there. I got like I get like different educational podcasts, so it feed me all of that. And then I got my page that I post on, which that one is. I don't even know what's on now. I don't watch nothing on that one.
Yes, sir.
But it's true, man. They literally curate your content. Like it's not how social media used to be back in the day where like I remember the days of Facebook where you would see all your friends' posts. You would scroll and you wouldn't see the same post like not once.
Yes,
you wouldn't
sir.
see the same person not once. And then all of a sudden, this was probably like, I'd say like 2015, 2016. It started to become like you only see like 10 to 20 of your friends post.
Yep.
And now it's to the point, man, you'll probably see like 5 or 6 people and then they just filling in the blanks with the post that they think you want to see.
Yes, sir.
And it's wild. So I think you're hitting a good point. Like be very aware of what's being curated to you. And they know exactly what you're looking for because they studying you off of your phone. They got access to your camera. As soon as you download that app and you think you about to upload a pic, you about to Snapchat your friends or whatever, the female that you trying to talk to, and you say allow access always, that mean they always got access to your phone, to your microphone. They hear everything that you say. They know everything that you search. They know all your text messages and what you typing. And so they curate into every single move that you making. That's a great point.
Yes, sir.
That's
and
a great
point. To your point, before we switch the subject, speak about something out loud, then go hop on your social media or go hop on, and so it's going to pop up as a recommendation or you going to see it. So I remember talking about that stuff back in 2014, 2015, and my family thought I was crazy. But now I got the verbiage for it, algorithm, you know what I'm saying? But no, it's real. So just be mindful that there are people out here tailoring your experience. And sometimes it's not even people. There are programs out here, bots out here tailoring your experience. And you think that everybody's not having that experience. You are.
That's real, bro. That's real. I want to pivot a little bit, man, and I want to get a little bit more into your story, bro. You got a lot of wisdom. Man, and it's much appreciated.
Yes,
I love having conversations like this. I want to know where this all started. Like, were you always somebody who was inclined for knowledge? Were you always somebody who thought a little bit deeper than the surface? Like, take us along that journey a little bit.
Yes, sir. So yeah, definitely kind of always was somebody who was an appreciator of knowledge. I remember having conversations with my uncle back when I was like 11 or 12, and he was trying to tell me about Jesus and about the Bible, and I'm hitting him, I'm hitting him across his head with stuff, and he like, man, you super wise. But I've always had an inclination towards knowledge. I remember, like even in the first grade, I taught my cousin how to read clocks, my older cousin. So she didn't know how to tell time, and I taught her how to tell time. So like teaching and education and kind of imparting wisdom has always been a part of my repertoire. And it kind of took on its own life as I got more comfortable in that. So my older brother is the one who gave me the nickname Jonny Knogood. And it's because I was up to no good. I was a bad little dude, you know what I'm saying? But when you kind of can grasp things a little bit faster than other people, and you're not being challenged, then you end up having idle time to get into mischief. So, bro, I remember, I don't know if you remember, bro, but you remember how we used to have to do those 100 problem add math tests, subtraction, multiplication, division. Yep. Man, bro, listen, I'll be always one of the first ones to get done. I remember there was one time I didn't get done first in the third grade and I flipped out. You know what I'm saying? I ended up flipping out on this chick, man. So I know it's a long shot, but if you see this, I'm sorry for who I used to be. I'm a changed man now. I could take a loss. But yeah, so I always had a natural inclination towards learning. And it's kind of funny, my dichotomy, because my dad is illiterate and he can't read. And my mom actually taught herself how to read at 3 years old. My grandpa had walked in on my mom looking at a book, and he thought she was just mumbling words until he actually read the book and said that she was actually reading. So my dad don't know how to read. My mom taught herself how to read. So there's like a level of intelligence, and there's different types of intelligences, and that's something that I want people to keep in mind as well. There might be somebody who's not mathematically inclined, but get them out there in the garden and they can show you which plants is edible, which ones is not. There might be somebody who can't garden, but anything you want to know about the physical health of the body and getting the body in shape, they can point you in the right direction, tell you to do this, hold your nose, do that, you know what I'm saying? To pop your ears, all kind of stuff. So I just want to say that there is different types of intelligences. And so, it's definitely been something that I had a natural inclination towards. My number 2 strength on Clifton Strengths is learner. My number 3, I believe, is intellection, input, and ideation. So 4 of my top strengths have to do with learning and processing information. And it's not necessarily something that you might look at as being a strength if you're in different environments that don't appreciate that. And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I had got in trouble at Fontenelle in the 6th grade, and I had to do in-school suspension. And the teacher made me read Malcolm X's autobiography. Oh. And so I only got like 8 pages in, but when I figured out, Brother Malcolm was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and you start seeing yourself into some of the historical figures, it make you look at yourself a little different. So, knowledge has been something that I've always appreciated. I always enjoy spending time around people who can elevate my growth, spending time around the elders, and I always used to enjoy school. Like in school, like I got a lot of stories about getting expelled, but I got expelled from Central. And I remember Miss Kursky. Shout out to Miss Kursky. I think she's the principal now.
Yeah.
But at the time, she was just a counselor, or one of the administrators. And she told me that getting expelled was gonna be good for me. And I went up there. I had to go to parish, and it was so disrespectful. They had us for English. They had us writing words out the dictionary and using them in sentences, and I just wasn't being challenged. I was actually taking algebra 5-6 at the time, and so they had to special order me in a graphing calculator. And being that I was in algebra 5-6, the math teachers up there couldn't actually help me, so I had to learn how to do algebra 5-6 on my own, and I was teaching other students their math problems. So by the time I graduated, I did pre-cal trigonometry and stuff like that. So I had a certain mindset in which I always gravitated towards school, but school wasn't cool coming from where we coming from. Like we don't learn that we are the forefathers of thought. We don't learn that we birth mathematics. We don't learn that we birth written language and stuff like that. And so I had to battle based off of how I could see myself in my perceived environment versus who I naturally was. And that led to a lot of conflict. That led to a lot of learning. That led to me dimming my light a little bit. Before we even got started, I mentioned how I had to walk away from the podcast because I'm not comfortable on camera. So it ends with us trying to fit ourselves into a box that other people can appreciate and not be ourselves in full, because we can unconsciously make people jealous or intimidated based off of who we are naturally. So I had to learn. There's a Bible scripture, Luke 16:8, that nobody sets a candle to be put under a bed or under a bush. It's meant to be it's not meant to be in a clay jar or under a bed. It's meant to be on display for the world to see the light. And so I had to get comfortable with walking in that and living in that. So I've always had a natural affinity for learning and studying. And, I love to read, bro. I love to read.
I feel that. I think this is a perfect segue into the men's group that you've created, because you've created a space where there's older men, there's younger men, it's all in between, and everybody's learning off of each other and using each other as resources and as support systems. And so I want you to talk a little bit about like what was the incubator for this group? How did it even come into play? And what's the direction that it's growing and going in?
Man, that's a beautiful question. So fast rewind, in September of 2010, I was the victim of a home invasion in which I was shot, and I actually ended up having to shoot one of the perpetrators. And I had to deal with my own set of challenges dealing with that. But every year around the middle of August leading up until September, I would go into a space in which I start to feel some type of way, and I didn't know how to explain it. And one of my real good friends, she asked me in April of 2022, she said, "Where do you go to feel safe as a black man?" And I told her in my blackness, and she didn't quite understand what I meant. And as I mentioned before, reading Dr. Rita Walker's Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, it kind of gave me more of a praxis, more language, more verbiage to be able to expound on that. But she said that when she asked other black men that question, they all mentioned like returning to mom or returning to their mother or saying that they had nowhere to go. And so I'm like, okay, well, for my 31st birthday then, I want to do a black men's mental wellness group, like, just create the environment where brothers can get together and just talk about what they got going on. Because if I'm going through this, there got to be other brothers who going through this. And so it was intended to be a one-off event. I ended up taking a trip out to Chicago with one of my real good friends. We went to go check out the Nas, Busta Rhymes, and Wu-Tang concert. And on the way back, we was all kind of just talking about different things. And she kind of gave me affirmation to move forward with the group. She's like, "Man, I got $50 on the flyer. I think what you want to do is dope." I ended up mentioning the idea. Shout out to the Fabric Lab. They had open space. We ended up meeting there. And at the conclusion of the event, you know, there was such an overwhelming response. Brothers like, we got to do this more often. So I'm like, okay, we could do a year. From the beginning, I wanted professional help in the room. It's something that being kind of like mindful of, it's a delicate process. You don't want to discourage anybody or give anybody any improper, type of like improper guidance, improper information in which they end up applying it negatively. So as the year went on, me and my real good friend Tyler Payne, we ended up getting certified in mental health first aid. So we went to go get youth certified and adult certified just to kind of keep adding to our bag of tricks or whatever. And so, you know, after the first year concluded, there was some brothers who was like studying psychology that was a part of the group. And we was trying to I'm trying to find somebody to hand the reins over to. And it never developed that way. So I'm like, okay, we're going in a year 2. I can commit to another year. And I think where we at now is like, it's a permanent staple. I think that, you know, I'm still looking for ways to be able to make it grow and be able to function without me. In February of 2023, I actually had a trip out into Seattle to go do a performance. And so that was the first time I was away from the group, and the group still went on, still functioned. So it let me know like the design of it can function in a way where I don't have to be a part of it. And so like heading into year 3, last September, we went out to a place near Ashland, looked at some resorts. So in October, we doing a men's retreat.
Oh.
So that's one of the next steps. And it's, you know, it's informal. It's not, you know, designed to be like heavy intensive or anything like that. It's just getting brothers into a new environment that most of them have never been into. We got elders who are a part of the group, you know, who's 70 years old, who really ain't been outside of Omaha like that. So, you know, it's like, okay, what does it look like to get into an environment where there's no Wi-Fi? It's just us. And we got to deal with some of the stuff that we got going on, but we also can, you know, build in camaraderie and stuff like that and just have fun. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at doing. They had a nice amount of meetings over the past couple of weeks of potential partnerships, people seeing the value in the things that we're doing. And as I mentioned, it's kind of something that it's a niche group in which a lot of people have had trouble organizing and getting it together. So, you know, as we moving into year 3, just getting everything certified, we got an org chart kind of mapped out and looking at making a 501c3, 501c4 with a 501c3 chair, charitable chair, and just so we can still get the donations, but not be limited on who we can serve. And I think that the beautiful thing about the group is it's specifically for Black men. And because we have gone through something very unique as chattel slavery, it has to be tailored to our specific experiences. And so, you know, the response of the community's been beautiful. We didn't have brothers as young as 6 and as old as 86. Shout out to one of our elders who just transcended, Elder Carl Tyler. You know, these are the type of things that he wanted to see for the community. And so, you know, to be able to provide it is free of charge. Shout out to Rib Shack Smokehouse. They've been sponsoring the food for over a year now. This month coming up, we got a couple sisters who actually committed to dropping off some food. Shout out to Miss Celeste Butler. You know, she's been dropping off cakes. You know, shout out to System Autumn. You know, she's been sponsoring the drinks. And so, like, you don't have to ask people to support something that they want to support. And so the community's been responding. It's been very beautiful. And so just looking forward to continue to help it grow. You know, we've been collecting money and helping other brothers with some of their initiatives that they got going on. So just the next phase of it is continue growth, continue working on myself, and so that me and the leadership team can take it as far as it needs to go. This is the format is something that needs to happen around the world to create space, because it creates conversation that changes how we view ourselves and changes how we view our experiences, something that we can have pride in. One thing that I love about Man's Search for Meaning is it talks about there's 3 ways to find meaning of life, and one of them is the stance you take towards unavoidable suffering. And some of our suffering is unavoidable. If you are just going into suffering just to have it, that's masochist. You know what I'm saying? But if you have a situation in which you're unable to avoid the suffering, the mindset you take towards that can give you a definition and a meaning of life. And so what is your purpose? What is the meaning of your life? Like there's different levels of approaches, especially within the psychoanalytic field. Freud is all about pleasure. Adler is all about power. But the thing that I love about Frankl's approach is about meaning. So what does meaning have? What is your purpose? And so it's something that a lot of brothers are developing and understanding by being a part of this group.
Most definitely. Real quick, plug in how can if there's black men that are watching this, how can they get in touch and get in contact with being a part of the group?
Yeah, so definitely, if you are a black man who wants to be a part of the group, reach out to our director of communications. His name is Tyler Payne, TYLER P Payne @gmail.com. Hit up his email, and if that's wrong, then we'll put up the link.
We'll link it in the bio. We'll link it in the bio.
We'll have it pop up on the screen or whatever. But reach out to Tyler Payne to get on the email list. We meet the last Saturday of every month. I think when we first started it that first year, some of the last Saturdays ended on like Christmas and stuff like that. This year, over this past year of 2024, we didn't have that issue. We've met consistently over the course of these almost 2.5 years now. We only missed one meeting, and that was in October, where we decided to just go visit the Black bookstore. So it's always the last Saturday of the month from 3 to 5 p.m. We down at the Assembly of the Saints Church, 4224 North 24th Street. Come check us out, man. So if you are unsure, just come try us out. Eat the food at the least. You know what I'm saying? We got some of the best food in the city. Shout out to Rib Shack.
There we go.
What I'm saying? So just come on. You don't feel no pressure to share, and just know that you won't be alone in your circumstance and your situation. And everybody in there is pretty personable, and nobody is grandstanding. We don't all know it all. We learned it off each other's experience. So if you want to be a part of it, man, come check us out. Feel free to find me on social media. Reach out to me personally. Jonny Knogood, JONNY KNOGOOD. I'm more active on Instagram. Send me a message. I'll pull up on you. It's me and a brother. We go walk around the park. You know what I'm saying? So whoever you are, wherever you at, man, come link with us, man.
This is good. There's so many other things that we can hit. I know this. I said this already, but we got so little time, bro, and we're getting to that time right now. In the future, we definitely gonna have you come back, man. As long as you open to it, bro. I want to dive more into your story, man, because you went through some things, bro.
Yes, sir.
And even just lightly touching it in aspects of like why you started the men's group, bro. Like, I think that's something that trauma right there is something that there's many people who can relate to it.
Yes, sir.
But even seeing how you came out of that and what you're producing and how you're continuing to heal through that, because healing is not just this thing that you do one time. Like it's a continuous journey.
Yes, sir.
Like you said, around every August, like you started to feel a type of way, and it's like it's because we continuing to heal. We didn't just get healed. And so yeah, so many things we could talk about, bro. Make sure y'all tap in with the men's group. Little question real quick, and then we're going to wrap up, bro. Do you think there will ever be a time where you extend the men's group to people past Omaha and go digital with it, go virtual with it?
Yeah, so it's definitely a part of conversations. And even if it's me going to other cities. So there's a sister who does a men group out in Chicago, Pastor Denise J. Ray. And I love to get out there to come see what she got going on. There's a brother who you had come speak. I know he had came
Barry Cartman. Yeah.
So there's a lot of different circles out there that's doing similar work. I actually got connected to Mike Brown's father, Mike Brown.
Okay.
And there's a brother named Cortez Rice. He's out in Minnesota, but they have created something called Chosen for Change. And it's a group of brothers who have all lost children at the hands of gun violence, some of them to police officers, but most specifically just to citizens, and they have all lost children. And so connecting brothers into those digital spaces, we talked about potential collaborations and what that looked like. Zoom was something that I think at the second meeting was mentioned, and just looking at the accessibility of it, It's something I think is important, but I also want to respect and maintain integrity of people and what they sharing. One of the rules of the group is what stays in the group, what's shared in the group stays in the group. So you just always want to make sure that, people's integrity is there, what they share is confidential, and that, it's not going to be weaponized against you. One of the worst feelings in the world is to open up about something and then have somebody go weaponize that against you. So, we definitely have plans. What that looks like, I'm open to it. But I do think that it's a conversation that will end up spreading beyond Omaha for sure.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Jonny, man, I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Yes, sir.
We're going to lock in again, all right?
Yes, sir, man.
Make sure y'all tune in to another episode of the CYR Podcast. We out.
Yes, sir.
That was smooth, bro.
Man, thank you, man.
That was smooth.